In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to introduce a sort with students when you're introducing different spellings for one sound. Now, if you're using the PowerPoints to help introduce this, there is a slide that's an introductory slide here. I have it printed out, but these pictures would be displayed for the students, and you would ask them to listen to the words you say and repeat the words out loud and pay attention to the vowel sound that is being repeated. And if you need to remind students that a vowel sound when spoken will make their chin drop, so you can remind them to feel where their chin drops and pay attention to what sound is coming out of their mouth when they say the word. So if you're unsure of what the words represent, if you look in the note, or what the pictures represent, if you look in the notes section of the PowerPoint, it also includes what the pictures represent. So you would ask the students, say the word boat, and they would repeat boat. Bone, they repeat bone. Snow, they repeat snow. Cold, they repeat cold. And then I always like to say it one more time just with them listening. Boat, bone, snow, cold. What vowel sound do you hear repeated in these words? And then some students, if not all, will hear O, and you'll ask for a choral response. Tell me what sound you hear, everyone, and they say O. And then when you click, this part will appear, and it will say we can read and spell words with the O sound. So this is just the introductory slide to get kids listening for that sound and thinking about the sound. And then you can tell students, even though these words all have the O sound, we have different ways of representing that sound. At this point, you would present students with this PowerPoint. So you would go to the next slide. So this is the next slide on the PowerPoint. Now, you would want the students to either have a printed copy of this. So when I'm working in my office one-on-one with students, I have a printed copy that I give them. If you're working in a class with 20 kids or so, you can either print out a copy so they have this on their desk, or if you have large whiteboards, you could also have the students record their information on a whiteboard. So it's really up to you, but the process is going to be the same. So this is going to be projected on the PowerPoint, and you'll see there are words up at the top and then empty boxes above. And that's where we're going to write the different spellings of the word, of each word. So you'll begin by actually telling students, go through each word and tell them what the word is. So you'll say to them, this is the word cold. Tell me the sounds you hear in the word. And as the kids are segmenting the word into the sounds, and they can hold up their fingers one at a time to help them segment, but you're going to be pointing on the smartboard, or if you would prefer, you could use a document camera like I'm doing now, but you're going to point to each spelling as they segment. So let's all say the sounds in cold. Ready? K, old, cold. Underline the spelling of cold. And this is where it's good for the students to have their own copy, because then they can underline it, and then you can also model. And then you ask them, how many letters are we using to spell the O in cold? And there's only one letter. Great, go ahead and write that spelling in the box and say, O, and they're gonna write it, O. It's always important to have the kids constantly saying the sounds and participating in each step of the process. Then you're going to go on to the next word. This is the word coat. Let's all say the sounds in coat as I point. Ready? K, o, t, coat. Underline the spelling in coat. And they're going to underline it. You're going to model on the board. How many letters are we using to spell the O in coat? And we have 2 letters. This is a 2-letter spelling. So we're asking the kids to pay attention to how many letters and what those letters are, and then we're going to record them in the box. This is the word snow. Everybody tell me the sounds in snow. S-n-o. Underline the spelling of O in snow. Write it in the box. Say O, O. This is the word toe. Everybody tell me the sounds in toe. T, O. Underline the spelling of toe. The O in toe. How many letters do we have in this spelling? Again, we have 2. Say and write the O sound, O. Okay. And then the last one is the word bone. Tell me the sounds in bone. B-own. Now this one's a little different because the spelling of the O is in O, the O sound in bone is the O. But what we want to also show students is even though, yes, this O is representing the O sound, and this E is sort of along for the ride here, without that E, if we take that E away, it wouldn't be bone anymore, it would be bon. So we want to bring students' attention to this E at the end and have them underline the O to show that that's the spelling. We're spelling it with the O, but that this E is participating in this, even though it's not next to it. So we call this a split vowel. Instead of the O and the E being right next to each other, as in the word toe, they're split. They're split by a single consonant. So the way we can have the students write this split vowel is we can have them write the O with a dash and put in a little E to kind of show them that, yes, this O is representing the O sound, but we do have this E that is helping it out, and it's a split vowel. This connecting with the split vowel is really helpful for kids, especially those who struggle with the VCE pattern. So I like to refer to them as split vowels, and that really helps them understand. Now, at this point, we've introduced all of the different spellings. I also want to actually point out before I move on, in later sorts, the split vowel is going to be combined in some sorts with the single spelling, just because there might not be a whole lot of words the students are doing, and it is in fact the same pattern. You've got the O that's representing the O sound. So this first sort, I like to separate them because I like to explicitly teach the split vowel, but just be aware that on some sorts, the split vowel will be combined with the O, as an aside. So once we've introduced all of the different ways of spelling O, now the students are going to go down to the word box and they're going to decode the words. Now, what is easy about this is you tell them up front, these are all the O sound. So that makes it easier for the decoding because they know the vowel sound will be O. So we're going to start with the first one, and you can have the students read through the word with you chorally. So we're doing this all together if you're working in a larger group, either a small group or a whole class. So let's all read the first word together. Let's underline the spelling of the O. So we're going to ask the students to underline the spelling to bring their attention to it before they blend. All right, let's blend it. Goes, goes. So we see an OE. Where are we going to write it? Well, let's find the OE. Now, it's critical that as we are writing, we're saying the sound. So essentially, this is a phoneme-grapheme mapping activity because the word is in front of them. They're just looking at it, and they're essentially copying it, but they're connecting it to the sound as they do it, and that's critical. So now let's say and write it. G, O, Z. Let's read it back. Goes, as in she goes shopping. So you'll want to use these words in sentences as you're going along, especially if it's a word you think the students might not know. The interesting thing about the word goes is it's actually a base word, go, plus a suffix es. But we don't read it as go is. Usually es represents an is sound. In this word, the O and the E join together for one sound, O. So you could talk to the kids about that, bring in that little bit of morphology. But in terms of reading and spelling, it's really the O and the E working together that are representing that O sound. So now we're going to move on to the next one. Go ahead and identify the spelling. So we have the O, but we also have that E that is that split vowel. So let's go ahead and blend it now. And we're going to use continuous blending. So we don't want the kids to hop at this point. We really want them blending those sounds. Note, note. Let's say and write it. It's under the split vowel. Note, note. Okay, now we're going to look at the next spelling. Underline the sound spelling that you see. We have that 2-letter spelling. Let's blend it. Boat, boat. Now let's find it and we're going to write it. B-O-T. Read it back. Boat. I like to put my boat in the ocean. The next word, find and underline your sound spelling. Let's blend it. Grow, grow. I will grow my garden. G-O. Read it back. Grow. We'll just do one more for now. Underline your spelling of O. Let's blend it together. Old, old. Find your spelling. We're going to write it over here. Old, old. Especially for the little ones, the O and the D blending together can be a tricky combination. So you may need to model that for them. And you do it first if they're having difficulty. So you could say, echo me, watch me first. Old, old. Now you do it. Old, old. I've just noticed some kids do struggle with that one. Now, what you would want to do is continue going through. I would spend no more than 10 minutes on this part where you're reading and you're mapping and you're writing the words. I have some students, I can complete this whole thing in about 10 minutes, no problem. I have other students that need to just do about half and it takes them longer, and then we might come back to the other half of the words the following time. If you're a classroom teacher, it would be the next day. So don't feel that you need to do every single one of these in one sitting. If you can, great. If you can't, you can just break it up into 2 sessions. But once you've gone through and you've sorted all of your words, and notice I do provide some additional columns because you might decide to add some words to your list. So maybe you've gone through all of these and maybe the next day, maybe you want to pull some other words. I have additional word lists included in the PowerPoints. So maybe you want to add some new words that you can write on the board and have the kids continue to sort. So that's why I do add some additional lines. But when you're finished sorting all of these words, you want to talk about some of the things you notice and ask the kids to make some observations about what they notice. One of the things kids notice right away is that OW tends to come at the end. Now later on when we do the Say Segment Spell activity, we're going to be asking kids to think about that placement. So this is where you're going to introduce it. When you're hearing that O sound at the end, it is typically going to be spelled OE. Whereas we see that the O or the OA or the O with the split vowel, that can come in the middle. The OE can come at the end or in the middle. We also want to talk about what's common. Which ones do we tend to see more often? The OE is a much less common spelling of O. So you can talk about all of those things, have a conversation about that after you've done the sort. So this is the sorting activity when we introduce one sound with many different spellings.